Hey, it's Austin, and today I want to talk about why I made this album, why I'm on YouTube now, and just some conspiracy theories too. So let's start out with my album. And in that, I would like to say a quote. So, me and my friend were talking on the phone the other day, and we were saying all this stuff, and he listened to my first single, and he said he actually liked it. So I made some music like way in the past, and I didn't put near the time into it, but I was just making it because I enjoyed music. I made a project when I was like 20, and then I made another project like 5 years later, and then like 4 years later, here I am. But he's really, heard the progression. So he called me and he was like, "Yeah, your music is." He could really hear that I put the time and effort into making this thing. Just the quality, just way leveled up. And then I was trying to explain to him because I don't think he understands what I'm doing. Because like I cook, I'm not really trying to be a musician. I just love making music, and so we're at this really big change in our life to where it's like our grandparents are dying off, our parents are becoming the grandparents, and then we are replacing them. So like in 10 years we will be the ones holding up the world. I was trying to tell them that the point of this album was to gain momentum. This album just kind of came out of nowhere. There was a really big life event that happened in my life, and sometimes I don't know how to cope emotionally except through doing art or through doing whatever, but the music just kind of came out and I wasn't able to stop. But then so it like really turned into a real project. And I got, to this point to where in a year or so from now I want to own my own business, because we're at a point to where I don't want to work for a corporation. I want to live in a small town. I don't want to be a farmer. I don't want to be a school teacher. I don't want to work at a fast food restaurant. I don't want to work for a hospital. And there's really not much more to do. So I'm having to make my own business. Like I need a win, I need momentum. And then what do mean by that? Is that this album was this idea that I had in my head, and then I worked as hard as I possibly could to, you know, fulfill that idea and bring it into reality, to bring it into the physical world. And then now I'm fulfilling that by trying to promote it through this video. And through that, it's like giving me momentum to push me into the rest of my life, to when I become an entrepreneur. I know that if I really have an idea, that I can see it through to the fullest extent, and that's all I'm doing. And in our lives, we have to figure out how to do that. We have to figure out how to gain momentum. And it doesn't matter. It can be making your bed. It can be telling your family that you love them. It can be brushing your teeth. But we have to gain momentum if we want to do anything. Because if not, we're just falling backwards. We're just dying. Moving forward, I'm wearing this hat today, and I'm wearing this hat for a very specific reason. It's John Deere. If anyone knows about John Deere has pretty humble beginnings, but it now has become this huge public trading corporation that just dominates agriculture, especially when it comes to cotton farming. John Deere pretty much has a monopoly on cotton pickers and whatever. So now I want to move into like the conspiracy section of this video. Just something that was weighing on my heart that I want to talk about. Like now we live in a world, like you hear it all the time. People say, "Oh, we're gonna own nothing and be happy," and you're like, what does that exactly mean?" And last week I was having a conversation with my dad, because he is used to be a farmer. He's a retired farmer, but he still is like very present in the farming community and interacts with these people day in and day out. So what he was telling me is that for someone like John Deere, if you're a farmer, if you buy a tractor, if you mess up your transmission, it's like $60,000. If you mess up your motor, it's like $100,000. The difference between when my dad was my age and younger, he could work on his own tractors, but now the tractors have technology and computers on them that only John Deere can access, unless you're a computer programmer or hacker and hack into the system. The whole point of me saying this, if you're farming, doing that, it is now cheaper to get a new tractor, get a new tractor, and when the warranty goes out on the tractor, to trade in the tractor. Like, it's cheaper because you can't afford to own the tractor. And then it just got me really thinking, what does that mean? And how does that translate to the rest of society? That now, as a farmer, it's too expensive to own your equipment. And then, then I got to thinking of trucks, new vehicles, yada yada. It's just a really interesting thought. I don't want to go into that. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I thought that was very interesting. And I say conspiracy theory. There's some kind of conspiracy theory you can go if you keep going down the rabbit hole. What it means, I don't know. But I just thought that was really interesting. I'm still trying to put these puzzles together. But it's just like a little glimpse of the future through farm. That's just like where everything's heading. The third part of this video, I would like to talk about a book called Heat. And Heat is written by Bill Buford. And if you go to the back and read just a little synopsis or whatever, so Bill Buford is a highly acclaimed writer and editor. Bill Buford left his job at the New Yorker for a most unlikely destination, the kitchen at Babbo, one of New York City's most popular and revolutionary Italian restaurants. So Babbo, if anyone knows, was owned by this guy named Marco Battelli. And I say R.I.P. Marco because he got into these sexual loss, whatever. Just a lot of women were accusing him of doing bad things, and he kind of got canceled or whatever, is kicked out of his group. But at one time, Mario Battelli was huge on Food Network and had one of the best Italian restaurants in New York, and he opened up restaurants in Las Vegas. So this guy, Bill Buford, he was like working as a writer, and he just kind of quit everything and he started working at Mario's restaurant. And then it just goes that he's kind of following him, and then he follows Mario's path, where Mario went to Italy to kind of study Italian food. And Mario Battelli kind of did this before a lot of other people were doing it. He was like one of the early, I don't want to say adapt, it was like before cooking was like that cool. He kind of, I don't know if he was trying to follow his ancestor, whatever, his heritage, but he went to Italy, to this small town, and kind of learned how to cook before he came back to New York and started Babbo. And this guy kind of follows his path, and works with just some crazy people, works with this very insane butcher in Tuscany, this Dante. And by Dante, I mean the writer of Dante's Inferno. This dude would just play crazy classical music and just be quoting Dante and butchering pigs and whatever. If you're interested in like the culture of the kitchens, if you're interested in the New York scene back in the day, and just kind of gives a history into Italian cooking too, a little bit. But today I would like to read a little passage, and like where I'm starting at in the book, Bill's already in Tuscany, and he's with this butcher called Dario, and Dario is the one that quotes Dante and whatever. In effect, Dario had become a food cop, enforcing a law of no change. Dario was trying to stop time. He'd grown up in a region where people had ceased observing the old ways, and he was determined to get everyone back on track before the old ways disappeared entirely. Historically, Time Stoppers don't have a great win-loss record, although they score high in the sentimental, doing all the wrong things for the right reason stakes. For Dario, implicit in the old ways was an assumption that the culture of a place was in its language, in its art, and its food, maybe the most direct expression because the habits of cooking and eating arise out of the land itself. What is Tuscan food, precisely? I'd asked, I'd asked Dario earlier at his house, and he said something vague, and I pressed him, and finally he said that true Tuscan food was evoked by the unique fragrance of the wet earth at that moment, and he pointed outside where it was still wet after a late afternoon storm, the grass now glistening in the sun, the smell of the dirt here after a rain, he said, which wasn't ultimately illuminating Tuscan food is mud. Wait, illumin which wasn't ultimately illuminating. Tuscan food is mud. The final disaster was the meat. It arrived, a steak 5 inches thick, sitting in a pool of blood. Dario started cutting it up with a pocket knife he carries with him and distributed slices around the table until he grew impatient and tore off a chunk directly from the serving platter and speared it with his blade and ate it rapidly, reenacting the evening's earlier furious outsized chomping. The meat, he said, after taking a deep breath. It's not good. He resumed chewing and speared another chunk. No, this is not good meat. It was the first time he'd eaten one of Gabriella's steaks. Gabriella is a rare woman butcher, daughter, granddaughter, great granddaughter, etc., of a family of butchers, whose shop is on the square in Garib. This was where the livestock market had been held, which accounts for the square's curious non-square design, narrow at two ends. The Chianin used to come in through the entire entrance at the top, be displays, win a prize, be sold, and leave by the exit at the bottom, where after so much public glory their lives were dispatched into so many dinners. The square is now dominated by tourists who are Gabriella's principal customers. She is in her 60s, has disconcertingly bleached blonde hair, more strawberry than lemon, very thick glasses, and a butcher's outfit that looks like bedtime pajamas. The last time we were in her shop, she had a chicken on the cutting board, its entrails pulled out. She'd started it and forgotten about it, and was hand feeding raw sausage meat to some queasy Bavarians, barking in Italo-German. Molto gut. Dario speared another chunk. With your tongue, he instructed me. I want you to touch the roof of your mouth. Do you feel that? It's coated with wax. I did as he said, and it was true. There was a greasy film. I wondered if the waxiness was so obvious that I would have noticed it without being told about it. I continued rubbing. I wanted to memorize both the slippery sensation and something else. What was it? A taste? When I was reminded of eating as a child, it was disconcerting association, rising up ungovernably, and suddenly my mind was entertaining a picture of me at the kitchen table, a child, my father to the right, my mother directly across from me. Where did that come from? I continued rubbing. It was this, the residue that had evoked the memory, the eating of a steak bought by my mother at a suburban supermarket and characterized by the same quality of fat. There had been a sense of occasion. This, in fact, might have been my first steak, and my father must have been feeling flush enough to buy one. I ate it and thought, this is it? Dario took another bite, chewed and paused. His cheeks puffed out a little, as though they were being punched from the inside. He was trying to identify the source of the meat's sticky cloyingness. The roof of your mouth should never be waxy, he reflected. The waxiness betrays what the animal was fed on, which would have been cheap grain, to fatten it up. And that's what I must have been remembering from my first steak, the peculiar qualities of cereal fattened American beef. Dario seized another chunk. He was eating with an inhabited intensity. This meat will sit heavily on your stomach. He ate another chunk, just to make sure that it would sit heavily on his stomach. The secret of meat is in its fat, he continued. When the fat is good, you can eat 2 kilos without feeling full. But with this, you'll feel full even though you are not full. All night you will feel its weight. Here, he said, motioning to the upper part of the stomach, like a rock. He grunted and ate and grunted and ate until he finished the platter. It was past midnight and time to return home. In the parking lot, Dario addressed me with great solemnity. A butcher never sleeps. A butcher works in meat during the day and plays in flesh at night. A true butcher is a disciple of carnality. The point was a piece of wordplay made possible in Italian. The word for meat and flesh are the same, carne. The line in the Bible about the Word being made flesh is, in Italian, the Word being made carne. Carne, flesh, carnality, sex, meat, skin, dinner, sin, and the Word of God, or, in the case of the Dante reciting Dario, that of the devil. It was one continuous stream of associations. Dario continued, you are now a member of the Carnal Confederation of Butchers. You are learning to work with meat like a butcher. You must now make love like a butcher. For the rest of the night, you must enact in the dark arts of carnality, a butcher's carnality. And then you will rise in the hours before dawn, smelling of carnality, and unload the meat from the truck like a butcher. I didn't know what to say. My boss was telling me that to do my job, I now needed to go home and have sex. It had already been a long, long day of carnalities. That meat truck was arriving in a few hours. It seemed unlikely that I had the stamina for more carnality, and making butcher love to my wife for the rest of the night, and reporting for work before dawn with no sleep. Maybe I didn't have the constitution for this life after all, but I did the best I could. I didn't want to let the guild down. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and understand a little bit more about why I'm making this album. Kind of understand where my head is at with the direction of the world, and understand what I enjoy reading. If you like this video, please like it. And if you want to see more, please subscribe. Peace.